Hey guys, what's up? I just want to make this video to talk about a topic that definitely was brought up quite a bit in my last video about hero design, and definitely things people thought about or whatever. And I have a this in front of me because this does link, it will link, but difficulty was the thing I mentioned in there, and I had a really weird take, obviously, which I recognize was a weird take, like by saying that I think most characters should be skillful and then we'd be in a better place. I do want to step like a tiny bit back on that because I do think we need to have characters that are more accessible for people at a you know, so that they can enjoy the game or whatever. Obviously I'm not a genius here and I could be wrong about that, but I think that just means skill floors need to be low. I don't think that means skill ceilings need to be high, like low. I think there's no reason to ever have a low skill ceiling. So like Ryan, for instance, is a character that's accessible and can be picked up by anyone, but can be learned to a higher level, right? There's lots of things to do with Ryan and stuff. But anyway, that's not even the main point here. Difficulty. How do we define difficulty? I think it's something that doesn't get talked about much because it seems obvious. Difficult. If something's difficult, it's hard to do, right? But I don't think that necessarily always applies in the way we think it does to something like a hero shoot like this, because we have balance, not everything's equal, we have different, you know, metas, we have different patches, there are different ways to look at skill and difficulty. So let's look at it from a standpoint of objective, like difficult to do well with, right? That to me is a different thing and doesn't feel as worth to talk about. So that would essentially apply that the most difficult character is the one that's will be the hardest to reach the highest rank with. Now I think that is objectively what is difficult, but I don't think it's a worthwhile difficulty talk because that doesn't make any sense. That can change to do with patches. That just implies that the character isn't that great. Not that they're difficult, they're just not good enough to reach the highest rank if they can't. And yeah, I don't fully see that as the way to talk about difficulty. So the way I want to first define what I find means difficult, and you can disagree, you can add your own point, you can do whatever you want to this. I think it's to do with like, it's so hard to explain, but like how difficult the character is to learn, to pick up, to play. I do not necessarily think that means it has to have a really high skill floor. That definitely would make a character more difficult, right? But I think it's more to do with the fact that there is a wide skill range, right? You have like, even if the floor's high, the ceiling's really far as well. And the value ceiling matches the skill ceiling, right? So as good as the character you get, the more there will be an amount of value that you'll get consistently, right? So I always use Tracer as an example. Most people will, but you think about Tracer. When you're first learning Tracer, she is difficult, right? You'd have to admit with me, right? Without even using a definition of difficult, if you play Tracer the first time, you'd be like, yeah, this is hard, this is difficult, right? But as you learn the character, right, which is hard, you'll get rewarded for learning the character, which is how I think it should be. That was one of my main things. I don't think I specified that well in that thing talking about like skill and whatever. I think a character should reward practice, reward time. That's why there's so many top 500 Tracer, Sojourns, and Genjis. It's because these are really difficult characters that reward you put in lots of time into them, learning all about them. Because there's so much to learn and they're so difficult, once you've learned them, they become the best characters in the game, regardless of like balance, right? But yeah, so that to me is how difficulty is. It's really kind of how hard the character is to learn, how much there is to learn as well. Like a character might have a relatively like you have to learn quite a bit right at the start of the character, but then it kind of falls off, right? Like you stop being able to do a lot. There's only so much you can do. I don't really know what characters are like that, but there's probably some examples out there or whatever, right? But that to me is difficulty, right? So when we think about it like this, let's put this into a into tier list. Let's talk about Tracer. Tracer's probably one of the most difficult characters in the game. Like top 3, top 4, whatever, most difficult. And no one would disagree with me on that. Like you wouldn't disagree Tracer's more difficult than most of the majority of the roster, right? Because she just is. She's one of the hardest mechanical characters. She requires lots of game sense, positioning, blinks. You have to learn how to use blinks, recall knowledge, like literally every matchup, because you're going to be taking loads of these different 1v1s. There's so much stuff to learn on Tracer, but she's rewarded for learning it, and that's the thing, right? And she requires you to know a lot of it, and that's what makes her difficult, right? She's punished for not learning these things. She doesn't have any free value, anything, whatever. But when you do learn them, it'll take you really, really far, but she's difficult. She just is difficult, okay? And we're going to compare that to, say, Bastion. Bastion is not very, isn't seen in top 500 much, unless something's gone wrong with the patch. You wouldn't see Bastion in top 500, would you, that much, right? He's not played there nearly as much as like Tracer, Sojo, Genji is. But I don't think you're going to tell me that Bastion's a harder character to learn and play than Tracer. It's about... this is it. It's about how difficult it is to reach the skill ceiling, right? How the value ceiling. Something like Bastion, within a game, you're almost at his skills. He doesn't have much of a skill ceiling or value ceiling. So you pick him up and you can just learn him instantly, whereas Tracer doesn't have that, which makes her more difficult. So like Bastion, you put in like, sure, he requires some mechanical aim, technically, sort of, so I'll put him in C. But he's a difficult character. Objectively, is he? He's not a difficult character. Oh my god, no. Objectively, he's not a difficult character, right? And that's the point. Let's move on to another DPS, right? Genji. You would tell me Genji's hard to learn. Genji is hard to learn. He takes a lot of mechanical skill, timing, like all the same stuff basically as Tracer, minus all like the blinks and stuff. He doesn't just get free value out. He really but he will reward you putting loads of time into him, right? I definitely think he struggles more than Tracer into different maps and matchups or whatever, but he is still versatile once learned, right? He just takes a lot of learning, and I think that's great. D.Va. Yeah, we should quickly do some of these. I think D.Va's a character that is quite tough. I do think she actually has quite a low floor, though. This is the problem. Difficulty. I'm going to start thinking about floor and ceiling here, which makes no sense. That's where I think the lines get blurred and it's hard to figure out, and you have to be specific when you're ranking things like this. Because if I'm ranking how difficult is it to reach their ceiling, then I would put D.Va up. But I think her floor is a lot lower, right? But that's just such a different argument. That's such a different take. But yeah, the way I'm gonna rank it is how difficult is it to reach their ceiling, right? How I like to get the best of the character. That would mean Doomfist is like an S tier character, even though I do think he has is actually quite easier than people think he is, for just because he can just play like a normal tank, just punch people or whatever, right? But there is a lot you can learn on Doomfist that would put him in S tier, right? Hazard, I think, warrants an A as well. Really, really high ceiling potential, right? And that's great. Whereas a character like Queen, to me, doesn't really have... She's great, and there's a lot you can do with her, but she does, I think, lack a certain level of depth to learn. Characters like Mauga, to be the best Mauga doesn't really take much, right? So I put him in D. I'm honestly Bastion probably should be here as well. Doesn't take much. So that's why he's in D. Orisa, same exact thing. Ram is... I'll put him in B, but it could be C. Ram definitely has a lot more stuff going on in his kit, but to get the most value out of him and the ceiling isn't really that hard as compared to other characters in the game, just because there's not, like, the optimal way to play Ram is kind of just block. So I don't know. Ryan, though, the ceiling, we're talking about the ceiling here. I think it is up there. I don't think it's up here, but it is relatively, like, more difficult to hit. Hog, I'll put him C actually, just because he has some mechanical demand that he can show. There's a lot more you can, like, there's a lot of hook stuff you can get good with, like hooking around walls and things, and there's more you can learn with Hog, so I'll put him there. Sigma, to get the best of Sigma, it requires a lot of practice all the time. He has quite a high ceiling. There's a lot you can learn on Sigma, which makes him A. Winston, S. You can't, like, picking up Winston doesn't seem that difficult because, again, no mechanical demand, very little amount of abilities, very straightforward kit, but his ceiling is insanely high, so there's loads to learn here. He's one of the more difficult characters to reach that value ceiling with, right? Ball, same exact thing. Ball also has just so much to learn, right? It's you know, it's gonna take a lot of time. It's gonna be difficult to reach that value in skill ceiling with him. Zarya, however, not really. There's only this, yeah, so much you can learn with Zarya. Ashe, it's kind of capped because she's just a hit scan, but yeah, like there's always stuff. You're gonna be rewarded for getting like better aim and better positioning and stuff like that. Same as every hit scan. And you don't, apart from Dynamite, you can't really do anything if you aren't hitting shots. So yeah. For some reason, I feel like Cassidy has less of a ceiling than Ashe, and I don't really know why. But in my head, it makes more sense. I think it's because Cassidy's just less dynamic and just more of a straightforward, just shoot people type of thing, right? Whereas Ashe is a little more choice and stuff in a kit. Echo, again, you can't tell me Echo's not difficult. She's difficult, even though she's, you know, seen a lot in top 500. Same with all these characters. This is the thing, right? Okay, I know I'm referring to one point someone made a lot here, but when you look at this tier list, you think about, these are all the characters you see in top 500. Let's even do this right now. I've got the game open. Right, and we check the leaderboard. Is it open already? I don't... Wait for it to load. Right? You see that all these characters that are really difficult and have these high skill ceilings that take a while to learn, are the characters at the top of my tier, are the characters being played in top 100, right? Look at this. Right? Freya's a new one that's definitely, like, being crazy, right? Yeah, you see these sims that come up here out of nowhere or whatever, right? But most of the time, it's these Tracer, Sojourn, Echo, Genji. Look at this, like, I mean, look at this. Right? As a venture player, like, it's cool to see those. Those exist. Genji. Right, and we take tank. Winston, Diva. Hogs, Winston. Doom's in there as well. Ball. See? But all the characters at the top are the ones that are in those ladder. That is because they are really, really, really difficult. So you have a lot more room to be better than people, right? It's like if you did a race against someone and it was a 50 centimeter race. There's only so much distance you can make to be quicker than someone. You're just basically gambling at a point because there's no real way to know who can run 50 centimeters quicker. But then when you put the race a little longer, maybe back up to 100 meters, you now have a lot of room for people to come first, second, third, and whatever. And that is such a weird analogy, but that is what difficult characters do. You have so much room to learn on Tracer that you can now, you need to learn here if you're going to push up those top 100s or learn one of these specialized, really difficult characters. Another point, specialist doesn't mean one trick. Specialist is definitely to do with is more of someone who's put a lot of time into one character and gotten really good at it, but then they have the other one. So in a pro setting, you might have a Tracer specialist, but on the side they can like low-key just play like Cassidy, Ashe, or whatever, which are characters that are marginally easier, but Tracer is their specialist character, right? So yeah. Anyway. Hanzo is capped at the fact that he's just mechanical, but there's not really much else there. Junkrat, their hitting mines and stuff in midair isn't really actually that practical in terms of you won't do it that much, but people always point out like, oh yeah, but Junkrat secretly actually has the highest skill ceiling because if you can hit every projectile, you're crazy damage. No one's doing that. Like you can, but it's not right. That's what I call like pushing the skills. Like you've gone past the skill and value ceiling because you're such a one trick. Mei, I think Mei has a lot more than people will acknowledge, but I don't know if I'm ready to give her A yet. Pharah, A as well. Lot difficult character, right? Lots to learn. Reaper, unfortunately, is also like a C. Let's just be real. There's not much more you can do with him apart from like just like flank, kill, it's whatever. It falls off a bit. Sojourn, I think Sojourn's like a high. She's maybe S. I'll be real. She's probably S. She's quite difficult. I'll give her A though. But that's because she's really strong right now. It's hard to tell when she's not as strong as Freya, but when she's like weak, it's hard to tell. But yeah, that's best. Soldier, there's really not much more you can do with this guy. Let's be real. Like, it's just be... Sombra is like... I want to give her S. I'll give her high A. I think she gets a lot more value out of just like being a nuisance than these characters do, that they require a bit more work to do it. Because stealth kind of cheats the idea of positioning, right? Well, you have to position well, but like, you know, Tracer and Genji have to work up and take space. You can kind of just walk there for free. Sim, there's not much more you can show off with Sim. Same with Torb. I think Venture has a lot, but just due to the way their gun works, I feel like it does fall off a little bit. There's not as much you can do. Widow, I'm gonna put Widow lower than Ashe. Widow is just, can you hit headshot or not? There's not much more you can learn. Ana, loads of dynamics. Same with Bap. Same with Brig. Yari, not really. Juno, I say, would also probably fall into that A. Actually, I might put B. I think Juno's a little easier just because, you know, headshot or whatever. And then Lifeweaver's like D. Lucio S. Mercy like C. Yes. People who tell me there's so much Mercy movement. I know, I actually quite enjoy Mercy, which is weird, I know. But you're not rewarded for learning any of it, really. Your baseline value is really easy to reach with Mercy. It's just poor design, really. Moira there. Zen. Freya has an S as well, and we don't know about Aqua. But there you go. Yeah, there are quite a lot of really, really difficult characters. I might have to spread this out more because I don't think it should be like this. I might go like this, and this. So there. That's a tier list of the most difficult to me. These are the most difficult, right? And then these are like the most difficult. You know how it is, right? And you'll look at this and you wouldn't disagree, right? Like, come on, like, if we're using the definition of who's gonna be the most difficult to learn, most difficult to reach their skill ceiling, that is the list. And you'll see all of these characters exist in top 500 to an insane amount. I don't actually know who's meta support right now. Who are we playing? Ana, Lucio, some Kiri, some Juno still. Kiri, yeah. Lucio. Yeah, that's how it works. That doesn't mean... the argument of like, because so many people in top 500 playing these characters, they aren't as difficult as a character like Junkrat, who there's less Junkrats in top 100. That doesn't even make any sense. Like, just doesn't make sense. You've got to think about it like an app from an average elo standpoint, like reaching gold. Which character is easy to reach gold on for a first-time player? These characters will probably be the easier characters. I'd say these characters would be your ones, right? It would probably be your easiest to hit gold on in a couple weeks or whatever if you had to do it. But if you wanted to really hit like GM Masters and stuff, you're gonna need these characters, right? That's just how it works. That's just kind of how the game design works, and that makes sense to me. And think about it, all the characters at the bottom, do you like playing against any of these? Like, think about it, do you like playing against any of these C, D, B characters? I know people don't like Sombra and she's an A, so we'll know that one. But look at these B, C, and D characters, apart from like Juno and some Rhine and Queen and stuff. These are your least favorite characters to play against, and guess why? It's because they have the least amount of skill expression. They have the lowest skill ceiling, they're the easiest to get value on, and so they're annoying to play against. So that is my whole point. The entire skill portion of my last video is to do with this, right? It's to do with that. And again, you can disagree with me, and you can tell me any valid criticisms you have, and I will happily, discuss them or whatever. I literally do not mind at all. I will talk about them. You can disagree with the tier list, but the tier list is more of a way to show than anything. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. I did yap for like 20 minutes about this, but it's just something I like talking about. I like talking about game design. It's really fun. Even if I'm wrong, it's fun to think about it, right? But there's also no real wrong or right answer. Anyway, peace out. Subscribe for more if you like this. And I'll see you in the next one.